Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are starting lesson 3, which is adding probabilities. Now this is a long one. So I am going to split it into 3 days for you. And hopefully if you do it in small pieces, if there's questions, you'll let me know when those questions arrive, so then when it comes time to pulling the whole lesson together, you'll be much more able to do that. So lesson number 3, adding probabilities. So now we have two formulas that we have to know. And they go with the words union and intersection. So the first thing is, let's talk about the union of sets. The union of sets is when we're adding sets together. And when we're adding sets together, we usually call this OR, because we're saying, are you from set A or are you from set B? So this way we need to add up set A and set B to know how many elements are in the two sets together. So the union of sets we call OR, and we have a symbol. We have the U for union would be the symbol for OR. So the symbol is a big U. Now notice it doesn't have the little leg on it, it's just the U. So if I were to say that I have a set A and a set B, and I want to know about the union, the probability of set A or set B, what I would do is I would take the probability of set A, I would add that to the probability of set B, and then I would subtract the intersection of set A and set B, which would be the probability of set A intersecting set B. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about this symbol as well. This is the symbol for and this symbol means intersection. So let's step away from this for a moment and let's talk about and. If I am talking about intersection of sets, I am talking about what elements overlap. That is the word and, because it's in set A and it's in set B. So it would look like this. The probability of set A and set B, and this again would be the overlap. Now, if we think about a Venn diagram, and we're going to spend a lot of time on Venn diagrams today, let's just now tie this into a Venn diagram so you can see what I'm talking about. Here is the overall universal set. This is the entire set of everything we're talking about. Now here's set A. And here's set B. And here's the overlap. This overlap region is the intersection. This is what I would say is A and B. Now the or, according to this would be, if I'm talking just about number of items, I don't have to do probabilities. I can talk about the number of items. Let me use a different color to highlight that. The number of items in set A or B would look like this. It would be all the items in set A plus all the items in set B minus the overlapping items. So if I just wanted the number of items, I would add them up and subtract what overlaps. And if I wanted the probability, it would be a fraction or a percent. So we're going to really take a look at all of this. Right now it might sound a little strange. So hopefully you wrote this down, or maybe take a screenshot of this, because these are your important notes. And now we're going to back up and we're going to start going really, really slowly with just Venn diagrams. So the first day, so that we get super used to this, is only making Venn diagrams. Maybe answering a question or two, but it's not going to be a crazy amount. So here you have packet lesson 3, day 1 it should say, and it says Venn diagrams, and we're going to talk about these. So now we're on day 1. Okay, so question number 1, oops, there's the wind. All right. So question number 1 on this packet says that there are 16 students in Mrs. Wilson's study hall. Now my study hall is the universal set. So if I was going to make a Venn diagram, here's the whole set of my study hall. And my whole study hall, they said, has 16 students in it. So there's my universal. That's the total number of elements in my set is 16. 9 students have a dog. So let's just write that. 9 have a dog. 6 have a cat. And 2 have both. So if I'm going to make a Venn diagram of this information, here's my dog, here's my cat, and here's both dog and cat. So the first thing I have to pay attention to is the both. 2 kids have a dog and a cat. So out of 16 people, I've already used 2. That leaves me only with 14 people left. So if 9 have a dog, but 2 of them also have a cat, in the dog only, so this is the dog only, there are 7 people. Because 7 have only a dog, 2 have a dog and a cat. There's my 9 people that own a dog. Do the same thinking with the cat. 6 kids have a cat, but 2 of those 6 also have a dog. I already talked about those 2 kids. So that means 4 kids in my study hall only have a cat. It's very logical if you let yourself think about it. Now the question is, how many students do not have either? So in other words, down here, this is my neither. If I am outside the circle, I am neither a dog or a cat owner. 16 kids are in the class, and now let's talk about dog or cat. If I want to know the number with the dog or a cat, this goes back to our class notes now. 9 had a dog. 6 have a cat. But I need to subtract the overlap, the 2 that have both. 9 plus 6 is 15, and 15 minus 2 gives me 13 kids in my class have a dog or a cat. 7 plus 2 is 9, 9 and 4 is 13. So you can look at it on the picture, you can look at it using the formula. Now if there's 16 kids, 13 have a dog or a cat, neither now is 13 with the dog or a cat minus, whoops, I'm sorry, the 16 minus the 13, wrote that backwards, and that leaves me with 3 that do not have a dog or a cat. So neither down here would be 3. So it's very logical. You know, we just want you to take your time and think through this. So before we get into big probability questions, we're going to just talk about actually taking our data and making a nice little Venn diagram from it. So let's take a look at number 2. On a used car lot, there are 6 vans and 8 red vehicles. So we're on a used car lot. They have 6 vans and they have 8 red vehicles. So that looks like what we're talking about, vans and red vehicles. So question number 2, my important information. Six vans and 8 red vehicles. Now I know the next thing, there are 20 vehicles in all. So if there are 20 vehicles in all, that's my universal. 20 vehicles in all. So when I start to make my Venn diagram, here, this is 20 vehicles. Now, 10 are neither a van nor are red. So here's my neither. 10. So 10 are neither a van nor are they red. So if I take away my neither, I know I have 10 vehicles that are vans or red. So now what I need to do is look a little bit closer. 6 are vans and 8 are red vehicles. Well, 6 plus 8 add up to 14. But I can only have 10. That means 4 overlap. 4 are my vans and my red vehicles. So if I used up 4 for my overlap for my van and my red vehicle, and 6 vans are on the lot, 4 of them are red, that leaves me 2 vans that are not red. And if I have 8 red vehicles on the lot, 4 of them are vans, that means I have 4 other vehicles that are red. 2 plus 4 is 6, 6 and 4 is 10, 10 and 10, 20. Brings me back to my universal set. So see if you can set up number 3 on your own. Like, you should pause the video right now and see if you could do number 3. If you can, you're going to be in really, really good shape. Alright, so hopefully you did pause the video. Hopefully you tried number 3 on your own to at least set it up. Let's talk about this. I'm not going to rewrite all the information. You have it. We have a high school. So this is our universal, is our high school. And the high school has 833 students. They are telling me about students that play a sport and students that play in the band. So here are my sports. Here is my band. And here is my sports and my band, because we know in every high school there are kids that play a sport and they're also in band or the music program. So 442 students participate in an organized sport but do not play in the band. So they're letting me know sports only is 442, because they said sports, no band. 31 play in the band but do not participate in the sports. So here I have 31 who are band only. 21 participate in organized sports and play in the band. So here now I have 21 students overlapping in both. 339 students neither participate nor play. So here's my neither. So did you set up your Venn diagram right? And if you add up 442, 21, 31, 339, you're getting back to 833 because that's the universal. So now the question is, how many play in a sport? If I want how many, now notice we haven't hit probabilities yet. We're how many, which is a number. So no fraction when it's a how many question. How many play in a sport? Now they didn't put any condition, they just said a sport. That means 442 plus the 21, which gives me a total of 463. Play a sport. How many play in the band? Again, this is not a probability, this is simply a number. 21 play a sport and are in the band, and then 31 are just in the band, so this school has 52 students in the band. How many do not play a sport? Now, if I just want to know how many are not playing a sport, that means, again, so that's my symbol for not, that means band only and neither. So here's my 31 plus my 339, and this is 370 students are not playing in either. How many play a sport or participate in the band? All right, so now I have play a sport or participate in the band. Now the easiest thing to do is just add up this. Because I already have my Venn diagram and it's already been figured out for me. So if I want sport or the band, and I have my Venn diagram correct, I can simply add up 441 plus 21 plus 31, and that would give me 494. Now I could also check this by using the formula for OR, and I can see if I did it right. So if I want sports or the band, this would be sports plus the band minus sports and the band. So now if I took my number of sports, 463, I took my number for the band, 52, and then I subtracted my overlap of 21, and you type that in on your calculator, you still have 494. So if you don't have a Venn diagram, sometimes it's just best to use the formula, but if you have a Venn diagram and you went through all the trouble of making it, the OR you just add across, because the 21 will only be counted once. If you use the formula, the 21 is already here and the 21 is in here. So you counted those 21 students 2 times. That's why we take one of them out. So think about that, think about the logic of that. And I want to skip number 4 for a minute. I'm going to let you guys do number 4 for homework. What I'm going to do is jump to number 5, because number 5 is going to be the first place that we're going to start taking a Venn diagram and making it into a table, so that we can look at, you know, this information not in a picture form but in a table form, because some people really do see things better when they're using a table rather than a picture. So Venn diagrams can be translated into what we call a two-way table. The numbers are going to be the same, but you know, of course, you're going to look at it, it's going to look a little different. So let's talk now about two-way tables. and we're on number 5. So 4 you'll do without me for homework. It says an online bookstore. We're talking about an online bookstore. And suppose 62% of the books are works of fiction. So if I have a work of fiction, now they're giving it to me in a percent, 62% of the books. Now I want to convert that and use that as a decimal. 47% are available as ebooks. Now they don't tell me if this is fiction or nonfiction, they're just telling me it's an ebook. So an ebook is 47%, which then becomes 0.47. And 14% are available as an ebook, but are not works of fiction. So now I have an overlap. I have an ebook but not, but not a work of fiction. And that was 14%. So that, you know, at first might seem a little hard to follow. So let's first think about the universal set. The universal set is this online bookstore. And this online bookstore, 100% of what they sell is either fiction or nonfiction. There's really, you know, no other way to look at it. Now, and what they're saying is that they're breaking this into fiction and ebooks. So if you're talking about the neither down here, you're talking about nonfiction and you're talking about not ebooks. So down here, the neither, this neither is nonfiction and not an ebook, because they still sell, you know, real paper books, even online. So that's what the neither is talking about, and we need to think about that. So they say, using the Venn diagram, find the probability. Now, because we're in percent form, these are probability form. It says a work of fiction and available as an ebook. Well, we have to first think about this. We have 62% are fiction and 47% are ebooks. But if we add these two together, we get a 9, we get 1.09. We're more than 100%, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we have to look through this a little bit more. And if 62% of the books are fiction, then we have to say to ourselves, well, 62% are fiction. That means nonfiction is going to have to be 38% of the books, just as something to think about. And if we think about being an ebook, we have 47% are an ebook and not a work of fiction. If I am an ebook and I'm not a work of fiction, that puts me right here, my 14%, because that's only the ebook, and that would also be whatever else is involved, but it's not a work of fiction. And if I have 62% of my books are fiction and 38% no, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm just lost track for a second. If 62% of my books are a work of fiction and 47% are ebooks, but I used up 14% with ebooks only, now this is the key, the 47 and the 14. If I now take 47%, which are ebooks, this is my total ebooks, and my 14%, which are ebook only, ebook and not fiction, that leaves me with 33% of my books are ebooks and works of fiction. So this is my overlap. This is my fiction and my ebook. But then my fiction was 62%. So if now I have 33% of my 62% already being used, then that means fiction only would be 29%. So that was a little tough because you really, really had to pull apart the numbers. So one more time. 62% were fiction, 47% were ebooks, and ebook but not fiction, which means ebook only, was 14%. So if I take my ebooks and minus my ebook only, 33% of those books are fiction and ebook. And if 33% are fiction and an ebook, 62% minus 33% gives me 29% is fiction only. So now, how many are nonfiction and not an ebook? Well, now we have to first add up and find out that if we are fiction or an ebook, this would be 0.29 plus 0.33 plus 14 from the Venn diagram. And we add all of that up, we are going to get 76%. Now, if we do it from the numbers that they gave us, if I say, using the formula, fiction or an ebook, this would be fiction by itself plus the ebook by itself minus fiction and the ebook. So then this would be 62% plus the 47%, which we already said is 1.09, and you can't have that much, minus the overlap, which is 33%, and then we're back to 0.76. So either way you look at it, if you're fiction or an ebook, 76% of the books fit into that category, which makes 24% neither fiction nor an ebook. So that was a lot of work. Now let's take a look at making this into the two-way table, which was where we're going. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get rid of all of this around here, just so I have some room. And I'm even going to get rid of the top just so I have enough room. We're going to take this, which is now on your page and completely filled out, and from here we're going to make a two-way table. Now, a two-way table is talking about multiple things. So first, let me draw this out. We have this big table, and we have our titles. The first title is going to be fiction. Then we're going to have not fiction. And then we have our total. So the first thing is, like I said a moment ago that I erased, you're either fiction or you're not fiction. You're either truth or you're made up. And then we have that we can buy this as an ebook, or we can buy this not as an ebook, which would mean, you know, we're buying the actual book. And notice we have total down here. So this is why this is a two-way table, because we're taking two things, fiction, nonfiction, ebook, not an ebook. And we are looking at how things are working with this. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that they put 1,000 here. Now, the reason we use what we call 1,000 two-way table because if you take any percent in probability and multiply it by 1,000, it becomes a whole number. So if we talk about the first thing, if I am a fiction book and I'm an ebook, fiction and an ebook, well, that's this guy right here. This is 33%. 33% multiplied by 1,000 gives me 330. So now I'm going to deal with nice numbers and no decimals. The second thing is that I'm going to look at is where it says I am a fiction, I'm a work of fiction, but I'm not an ebook. Well, that would be fiction only. Fiction only was 0.29. 29% times 1,000 is 290. And this adds up to 620 works of fiction and either an ebook or not an ebook, which goes back to our original problem where it says 62% are works of fiction. So my total fiction is 62%, 33% were available as an ebook, and 29% were fiction only. So that is how that breaks down. These two added up make that. Now let's look at the next column. If I'm not fiction, well, if I'm not fiction, I was only the ebook here. That gave me an ebook and not fiction. There's the overlap. That gives me the 14% or 140. And then it says I'm not fiction and I'm not an ebook. Well, that was mine either. And that was my 240. And this adds up to 380. 620 and 380 make 1,000. So that two-way table worked with my columns going down. Now let's look at my rows. 330 and 140 make 470. 290 and 240 make 530. And 470 and 530 make 100. And so there's my table. This is a hypothetical 1,000 two-way table. Now, eventually we're going to be doing probabilities from these tables. And so it's good to get used to taking the Venn diagram to the table so you can work back and forth and you can read both of these different things. Now, part B, actually this is part B, part 3 on this says complete the table showing the probabilities. Well, that would be completing the table using these probabilities. So basically I'm just going to make the table here and I'm going to maybe abbreviate because we still have the 3 rows and we have the 4 columns. This is my total and this is my total. And again, I was either fiction or I was not fiction. And I was either an ebook or I was not an ebook. So I'm just abbreviating. And back to here, fiction and an ebook was 33%. Fiction, not an ebook, was 0.29%. And together this made the 62% that they gave me. If I was only fiction and I was an ebook, so fiction and an ebook, it's like plotting a graph. You got to look at both and bring your fingers together. This was my 14%. If I was not fiction, not an ebook, that was my overall, my 24, and that was my 38%. 62% and 38% is 100%, or 1.0. 33% and 14%, this is my 47%. 29% and 24% is my 53%. 47%, 53%, 100%. So today, I'm going to ask you to just finish the packet. Anything we didn't do, it's all about making a Venn diagram or a two-way table and thinking about what they're saying to us. Please let me know if you're having any problems with the numbers. I know some of you are going to catch on really quick and some of you are going to have a lot of trouble. If you're having the trouble, please let me know, because I can't help you if you don't communicate with me. Good luck.